So phase 2 of your expired listing and for sale by owner phone calls. We went over phase 1, which was agree and pivot. So if you need a refresher, make sure you go back to part 1, which was agree and pivot. The first part of the conversation, we're just going to go ahead and agree with whatever objection in that first part of the conversation comes. And then we are going to pivot, not go into the objection any further. We're going to pivot, and the pivot is going to be a question that takes your potential client that's on the phone on the other side down the path of conversation you want to go down. So again, if you need a refresher, go watch part 1. This is part 2, which I like to call stop selling, start solving. As always, if you enjoy this, if you get something out of it, if it helps in your next conversation, if you find value in it, go ahead and subscribe, share the video, drop a comment. I'd really appreciate it. But I know this is definitely going to help. So phase 2 of the conversation. A lot of times you can get good at opening the conversation. So we can ask certain questions, we agree and pivot, and then we get to this middle ground in the conversation. And this is a key component to setting up yourself for a successful closing, which is also, we have a part 3 on that as well. So setting yourself up for the closing, you're going to transition from phase 1 to phase 2. The way you know that you're now in this phase of the conversation is going to be when they start saying full sentences. They start actually explaining and elaborating on your question or on whatever you guys are talking about. Because in the very beginning, as you know, with for sale by owners and expired listings, a lot of it's very fast responses. They're very short, uninterested, maybe trying to rush you off the phone, get to the point. When you feel that momentum shift and now the client is actually talking, that's awesome. You want them to talk majority of this time. And so that's how you know you're in this phase. So the reason why it's stop selling and start solving is because you have to use some sales technique in the very beginning to get them into the conversation. But once you get them into the conversation, like cut the BS, right? Because the walls are coming down. So cut the sales BS. Stop trying to sell them something or say the scripts or all the little techniques that you think are little mind tricks and mind games. And just be genuine and start actually working on solving their problem. So in order to solve someone's problem, what do you need to know? You need to know what the problem is. How do you figure out what the problem is? Well, you ask really good questions. So in this phase, there's a couple highlights that I wanted to make sure we go over because I like to give framework. I'm not big on scripts because every conversation is going to be different. But in this phase, this is the most important part to get detailed information and get the full story, okay? So you know when you ask somebody a question, they tell you something, you go, I feel like you're not telling me the full story. Then later in the conversation, they just come clean, right? You know, I had this guy that we were listing his home, and it's just at first we're talking, it's all about the equity. He wants to, max it out. He's moving on to another state. He can't stand the politics here. He just wants to get as much money he can and take off. By the end of the conversation, he was in tears and he was talking about how his girl left him and he doesn't know what he's going to do. He just needs a fresh start. That's what I mean. I get the full story, okay? But the only way I got the full story was by asking really good questions and using some of these techniques that I'm going to go over. So another side note on why this is so important is because agents have trouble with follow-up because they didn't get the detailed information. Once you know the plan, once you know what the client wants to accomplish, what's in their best interest, your follow-up is just simply following the plan that you guys created together. And so I think a lot of times agents get information, their follow-up becomes very dry because they just don't have the detailed full story and that emotional connection that they shared in that conversation. So number 1, get the full story. Ask more questions than you do talk. This is your time to listen, take notes, find commonality, build rapport. But at the end of the day, you want them to be talking more than 50% of the time, okay? Second, we want to emphasize and empathize with pain points. So when you talk about expired listings or even for sale by owner, we're going to stick with expired right now in the conversation. Expired listings, right? you got to think about it. They just went through a potential sale. They listed their home, got it ready, told their family and friends, posted it on Facebook, told their kids to keep their bedrooms clean because we're selling our house, 90, 120, 180, a year of this. Showings, wondering what's going on, uncertainty, unable to keep planning in the future because of this house that hasn't sold yet. Who knows what the experience with the real estate agent was? These are things that are pain points. So in your conversation, you want to listen for those. And what you want to really do is label this person something in your mind, right? Frustrated, sad, uncertain, angry, confused, right? You want to make sure and label them as you're talking in your head so you know this is what their pain points are. You want to emphasize them. So if someone had their property example listed for 180 days with 2 showings, I would say, I would be extremely frustrated if I had my home on the market for 180 days and only 2 showings. I mean, that just has to really grind your gears. I completely understand why you're frustrated, right? I'm emphasizing the pain. I bet you that caused you a lot of uncertainty in that 180 days in 2 showings, right? You want to emphasize what happened and make sure you point it out because part of your close is going to be solving those pain points specifically. That's part 3. Now, you want to empathize with them, and I can only imagine what you've gone through. You know what? We're going to make this right. I would be frustrated as well. I get where you're at. These are ways to empathize with them. So if they've gone through a tough time of life or uncertainty or divorce, like empathize with the pain that they're having. Let them know you understand it and you care about it. Okay, because again, this is all lining you up for a very successful close. But at the end of the day, if uncertainty is the issue for the client and you've found that because you've gotten the full picture, like it's not even about sales anymore. You're just doing everything in your power to give them certainty with your service. So that's where the stop selling and start solving comes into play, because in this conversation, like you're just being a genuine human and really listening to what's going on. Remember, walls are down and you want to talk about everything. Okay, this is the time to have the 20-minute conversation about other things, about real estate, about life, but keeping the conversation on track. Okay, so the last phase of this is going to be repeat it back and agree. Okay, so what that means is that you're going to get to a certain point in the conversation, and again, you're taking notes, and you're going to get to a certain point where you think you basically have all the gist of what you need, right? So like, for example, questions you want to ask that are going to give you the answers you're looking for is, why were you moving in the first place? Where are you going? Are you planning on buying another home? Do you need to sell this home before you buy one, or vice versa, right? Have you talked to anybody about financing? What was the activity from the previous listing? Like, how many showings did you have? Did you get any offers? These are all questions that are going to unlock the answers you're looking for, and you're going to get the situation. Once you get the situation, you're going to repeat it back. Okay, Mary, so I just want to make sure I understand. That's a key phrase. I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I just want to make sure I understand. You have plans to move to Texas. You already have your job accepted. You're working virtually right now. They've given you a half a year, 6 months to sell your home. So you're not in any hurry, but you'd rather kind of get it going sooner rather than later. You had the property listed for 90 days before. You think it was more of a overpricing issue in the market. However, you only had a couple showings, so nothing really significant took place. And you want to get your home on the market in the next month. And you want to do it in a way that we can almost guarantee we're going to have an offer in the first couple weeks, because you don't want to go through that again. Does that sound about right? Key word there. Does that sound about right? Are we on the same page? And you want to get the agree. Yes, that's correct. Now, a lot of times they'll correct you. No. It's not Texas, Ramon. It's Arizona. Oh, gosh. I'm sorry. I don't know why I thought Texas, right? They will correct you. So it's like you want to get this completely right. And then they're going to say something to the tune of, yep, that sounds about right. Yep, that's the gist of it. Okay, cool. I'm glad we're on the same page. That is the agree, okay? This process is going to lead you directly into the close, which again is part 3, but this is where you come up with the plan, Okay, this is where you come up with the plan. This is where you assume the sale. This is where you sell them with confidence and you go to set the appointment. Now we're going to talk about exactly how to do that in phase 3. So summary, stop selling, start solving. Here's what's really cool. With SOI, so your sphere of influence, people that already know you, like you, and probably trust you, you get to skip the first part, the agree and pivot, right? Because they want it. They want your help. They trust telling you what their full story is. So a lot of times, if you work a lot of sphere of influence or referrals, you're just going to get into this right away. But it's very, very important that no matter who you talk to, you get the full story in that moment, because a lot of times, especially with for sale by owners, expired listings, even referrals, you might not get another chance to get that information. So you want to keep that in mind. Once the walls are down, you're going to cut the sales BS. You're going to start understanding, what is this person's problem and how can I solve it? What's their problem? How can I solve it? How do you figure out what the problems are? You ask good questions. Once you get the full story as they're explaining, when you have the opportunities, you want to go ahead and emphasize and empathize with pain. So empathize the pain they've gone through and emphasize the pain that they're having, okay? You're going to repeat their story back to them. You're going to go ahead and repeat, I just want to make sure we're on the same page. I just want to make sure I understand the full picture, the full story. I want to make sure I understand your situation, however you want to say it. You're going to repeat it back verbatim, and they're going to agree, right? They might correct something, but they're going to ultimately agree. Once you get that agree, yep, that's correct, that's right, we're on the same page, you got it, I'm so glad you listened. This is where we tee up phase 3. And phase 3 is the close, which is probably my favorite part. And we're going to teach you about some different language to use and how to soften up that conversation where conversion is going to skyrocket. So again, this is phase 2, stop selling, start solving.